you can see here, right? So today we will study how to apply the financial statement, right, into the equity valuations. Okay, so let's take overviews, right, of the valuations, right? For the valuations, right, we will first forecast financial statement, right, based on the current financial statements we have, right? We have the income statements, right, and we have the balance sheet and also statement of the cash flows, right? Based on the past years and also current financial statements, you will forecast next 5 or 10 years financial statements, right? Use the reasonable growth rate you studied, right, from the previous financial statements. Then use the cost of the capital, right? We studied this one in our case study of the BGS technology, right? Use our cost of capital, right? It will providing you what discount rate, and then use the cash flows you estimate in a pro forma financial statements. You will use that as input, right, into our valuation model, right, to do the equity valuations, right? Luckily, right, our textbook providing our software, like eval, with everything, directly can help you to do the valuation, right? You don't need to create a Excel sheet by yourself, right? Everything is ready. What you need to do, right, is put your financial data, right, in that eval workbook, right? Then these calculations, the forecast, right, cost of capital will be automatically solved. The valuations will be traditionally expressed as discounted future cash flows. Right? What means the future cash flows? Right? Means the cash flows will be not happened on time zero, but in the future. Right? So you will forecast, right, the next 5 years or 10 years cash flows, right, based on your study of the current and the previous financial statements. We can also express the valuations in terms of what? Discounted future residual income, right? Our goal is to do the equity valuations, right? The equity holders are residual claim of what? Income, right? So after you pay the tax, after you pay the interest, after you pay the preferred stock dividend, what left called a residual income. Residual incomes is the equity holders what? Income, right? So you can discount the residual income in the future years, right? Then the present values is the equity value, right? This one is called a free cash flow to equity models, right? You can see these details in today's class, right? So we will evaluate the equities by discounting the flows to equities, right, holders. So the flows to the equity holders, right? You can, for example, some companies pay dividends, right? That's how they distribute, right? They are, residual income, right, to the shareholders, right? For example, like the Microsoft, right? They will distribute, right, dividends, right, to their shareholders, right? So you will use dividends as flows, right, to discounted value forward on the equity price, right? But not every company pay dividends, as you know, right? For example, Amazon.com, right? Amazon is a big company, right? The stock price is more than $2,000, right? But they never pay any dividends, right? They never distribute their residual income, right, as dividends to their, shareholders, right? They will use residual income for expansion, right, for operations, right? So for these companies not pay any dividends, we will discount what? We will discount residual income, right, to get a value for the equities, right? So based on those companies pay dividends or not, right, we will discount different flows, right, to equities, right, to solve the value of the equities. And we can also use our free cash flow to the firm model, right? So that means we will evaluate the whole business entities, right, by discount the cash flow to all investors, right? All the investors including the two, right, including the debt holder, right? Debt holders usually in the form of what? Bond, right? And also we have the equity holders, right? So for the investors, it's not just the equity holder, right? Also including what? Including the debt and equities, right? So we will, first get the free cash flow to these investors, right? So that's operating cash flows plus what? Plus the non-cash charge, right? Then we will use that, right, to derive the free cash flow to all the investors, right? Then use this free cash flow to all the investors. We will also solve a discounted value, right? But if you do that, you solve the whole business entities value, right? Whole business entities value minus the value of the, the book value of the debt will be the value of equities, right? So for these models, we will do the two-step, right? Compare with the you solve the value of the equity directly, right? You will first solve the value of the whole business, right? Then minus the book value of what? The debt, right? Then it will equal to what? The value of equities, right? So we will use our free cash flow as a flow to investor and also the residual net operating what? Income, right? Residual net operating income. So net operating income should also including what? Should including the interest expense, right? But our free cash flow to equities is not including what? Not including the income and also not including the non-cash, charge, right? Non-cash charge, right? So that's the difference. Be careful, right? So let's see the details. So first one, we will have the dividends, right? So you see some big companies, they keep paying dividends to their what? To their shareholders, right? So we can use our what? Dividend discounting model, right, to solve the equity values, right? So I think you know this model very well, right? This model is also called what? The Gordon models, right? In the principle of the finance, right, we study the DDM models, right? We discount dividend, right, in the future, right? And you got present values for these cash flows, right? That's the price of what? That's the price of equities, right? Price of equities. So this one called a discounted dividend model. And for our clean surplus, right, in accounting, right, that implies what? The current common equities, right, equal to the, last year's common equities, right, plus the net income minus dividend, right? So, what's the change of the common equities should equal to what? Should equal to the net income minus dividend, right? Minus dividend. So after you, spend part of the net income as dividend payments, right, to the shareholder, right? What left in the residual income will becomes the what? Becomes the increase of what? Common equities. So that's this clean surplus tells you about, right? So based on this one, right, we can derive our dividend, right, will equal to the net income minus the change of what? Common equities, right? So dividend equal to the net income minus the change of common equities, right, from last year. And you can use this equation to substitute our dividend in our DDM models. Once you do that, right, you can see we will finally got, right, the price of equities equal to the, current common equities plus the discounted value of the residual income in the future. right? So this formula give you an indication how to solve the what? How to solve the value of equities, right? Use our financial statement, right? First, you can form a balance sheet, got our common equities value right now, right, for this year. And also from your income statements, you will get a residual income in a forecast years, but in the future. Then use our cost of equities as a discount rate. You discount all the future residual income 2 times 0 plus the current uncommon equities. That will be the value of what? Equities, right? So that's how we use our financial statements to solve the value of equities, right? Based on the current common equities plus the discounted value of the residual income, right, in the future years. Here our residual income, right, equal to the net income, right, minus the cost of equity times what? Times the last year's common equities, right? So for our net income, we will pay the cost of the equity holders, right, based on the last year's common equities. What left, we will define as what? We will define as this one as the residual income. So this one is our free cash flow to equity models we will use in these methods. Right? If you have time, please check the Excel sheet on our course website I sent. And in that workbook, they already deliver the free cash flow to equity model in one book sheet. Right? So you can see how they handle these valuations in that book. Right? So you don't need to create this valuation by yourself, like I mentioned, but you need to understanding what the number means in this workbook and how they do these valuations. So based on this model, right, our free cash flow to the residual income, right, you can say we will do more operations, right? Some companies, right, they don't pay the what? They don't pay dividend, right? So instead, we will not use dividend, right, as our numerators anymore, right? For a company like Amazon, right? If you want to evaluate, right, Amazon stock, right, or you want to evaluate, for example, Tesla stock, right? Both stocks has the valuation available on our course website. You can see the detailed worksheets for these two stocks valuations in the details. For these companies, they never pay dividend. Instead, they will keep their residual income for expansion or operations. So we will not use our dividend in the numerators. We will use our what? Cash flows. So we will discount our free cash flows to the time 0 to solve the whole business values. And this one here is not the cost of equity anymore, but what? But the cost of capitals, including both equity and what? Debt. So this one is actually what? Weighted average cost of what? Capitals. So this one we already studied in our case study of what? BGS technology, That's a weighted average cost of capital, The above is what? Is the free cash flow to what? To the firm. So we discounted our free cash flow to the firm 2 times 0, use our cost of capital, We solve the whole business, whole entities values, PF, And this PF can be used, to solve the equity value if you can minus the book value of what? Debt. So our entities values minus our value of the debt, we can solve the value of what? Equities, So book value of the debt you can easily get from a balance sheet, So the difference will be what? Will be the market value of what? of the equities, right, based on your forecast of the future free cash flows. And based on our clean surplus, right, in the accounting, right, so our net operating assets equal to last year's net operating assets plus what? Plus the net operating income minus the free cash flows, right? Free cash flow means operating cash flow plus what? Plus depreciation and the other non-cash charge, right? So that's our clean surplus, right? Formulas. So based on these equations, we can also solve what? We can also solve the free cash flow, right? Free cash flows will be equal to a net operating income minus the change of what? Net operating assets, right? So if you get this equation, you can substitute, right, our free cash flow in our discounted cash flow model, right? So you get our value of entities, right, equal to the net operating assets, right, in current year, plus the discounted value of what? The future residual net operating income, right? Our discount rate here, right, is the cost of capital, or you can say weighted average cost of what? Capitals, right? This is the residual net operating income, right? Residual net operating income can be solved with the net operating income minus the cost of what? Net operating assets, right? And here's the cost of what? Capital, right? Cost of capital times the net operating assets in the last year, right? It will be the residual net operating income, right? So this one is another way to get our equity values, right? So we will solve the value for the whole entities, right? Then minus the book value of the debt. Now we will get value of the equities, right? So here, right, which model we should choose, right, in the last two slides, right? We will choose between the cash flow, right, free cash flow, or residual income. Which one should we choose? You can see here, right? The cash flow and residual income valuations equations will give the same answer if the inputs are derived from an internal consistent set of financial statements, right? So if your financial statements are internal consistent, right, two models should get a same what? Same valuation price for entity for equities, right? If they are not consistent, right, the equity valuation will be not consistent anymore, right? And also you can see the difference, right? The cash flows measures what? Value distributions. However, residual income provide more on the focus for the value creations, right? So for residual income, right, is for the company more on the what? Value creations. For example, what? Amazon's, right? And also like the Tesla and Google, right? So these companies are more on what? Value creations, right? So it will be more feasible to apply the residual income models, right? For cash flow, for dividend model, right? It's more on what? More on the value distributions, right? So they will distribute cash flows to their what? Equity holders, right? So for these companies, they pay what? They pay dividends, right? So we will most likely to apply the cash flow, right? Dividend models, right? For example, the Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola pay dividends, right? And also we have the Microsoft, right? Johnson & Johnson and Merck, right? So these companies, we will most likely to apply what? Cash flow, right? Dividend models, right? For the Amazon, Tesla, Google, these companies for the value creations, right? We will use residual income, right? As our cash flows. You can see here, right? By using our residual income as our discounted cash flows, right? We can typically, right, capture more of the value in the near-term forecast, and also focus on the same accrual-based performance matrix, right, as the managers and the professional analyst, right? So for the growth company, right, in the industry, right, we will prefer use our residual income, right, do the analysis and do the forecast. So you can see here, right, this is our discounted residual income model, right, and this one is focused on the key value creations, or you can see the key value drivers, right, key value drivers. And our price to our common equities, right, will equal to 1 plus what? This is a return on equities, right, minus the cost of equities, right? So 1 is the return, 1 is the cost. So this one means the surplus, right? Surplus of your what? Net income, right? Times what? Times the growth factors, right? Growth of the common equity over time, right? You can track this growth of the common equities. Sorry, in a balance sheet, right? You can see the common equities in the shareholders, right? Equities, that's item called common equities, and you check the common equity from the last year, right? And this year's, right? The ratio is called a growth rate of what? Common equities divided by 1 plus the cost of equities, right? So basically, we discount our residual income, right? Use our cost of equity, right? We can solve what? We can solve the value of what? Equities, right? Equities. You can say these expressions, right, indicate the value created for the growth company is forward, is for generating a future return on equities that will be more than the cost of the capital or cost of equities. Okay? So we want to have a return on equities more than the cost of the equities, right? To raising the capitals, right? Your companies then can grow, right? That's growing the size of the investment based on this one, right? The ROE is what is generated, right? You see, if we increase in the what? If we increase in the common equities, right? So our whole value will be also scaled up, right? Will be scaled up, right? That's also part of what resource, right? To increase your what equity values, right? So for our valuations, right, we will break down into a two stage, right? So you can see here, right, in a DDM models, right, you studied before, right, we have a dividend, right, 0, right, and D1, D2, right, D3, and until DT minus 1 and DT, right? And we will not, continue, right? Dividends will be paid forever. So we just, not put the other dividends on this chart, but you should know, right? Even we have a terminal time T, capital T here, right? But after time T, that will be still the dividends will be paid to your stock, right? So for these DDM models, in our previous, finance class, we know this one can break into what? Break into the two-stage valuations, right? The first stage is students are not what? Are not growth with a constant rate, right? So we will discount all these dividends to time 0, right? Use our cost of capitals, right? From D1 to what? To T minus 1, right? So we will discount, right, these students to time 0, right? T from 1 to, 1 to t minus 1, right? That's the first stage, right? We discount with unequal dividend to time 0, right? That's discounted value you solved, right? Then for this part, right? Then for this part, right? Then for this part, right? For this part, you know our dividend will grow with a fixed rate, for example, G, right? So for the fixed rate growth, right, we can use a perpetuity formula, right? That will be equal to what? That will be equal to growth of what? Dividend, right? So we have the dt, right, over r minus what? G, right? R here is the growth, R is the return of what? Equities, right? G is the growth rate of what? Dividend, right? So this is the value for all the cash flows, all the dividends in the blue area, right? For this part is something in the future, so you will also apply what? Discounted value over 1 plus RE raised to what? Time t minus 4, right? Because this discounted value is actually solved on the time t minus 1, right? So you will also discount to time 0, use 1 plus RE raised to the t minus 1, right? So basically, that's how we call this one as what? Two-stage model. The first stage, we discount all dividends, right? Before the dividends keep growing with a constant rate G, right? We will solve this one, right, by adding all these discounted dividends together, right? And for a second stage, if based on the dividends grows with a fixed rate G, right? For this part, we will use our discounted value of what? Perpetuity of dividends, right, to solve the value for a second stage. So this is our two-stage model, two-stage dividend discounted models, right? We studied in the previous course called Principle of Finance, right? Now we will not use this one anymore, right? Because our focus is for the what? For the growth company, for Amazon, for Tesla, right? And these companies not pay dividends, right? So how can we do the multiplication, right? To still apply this model, right? For the company not pay dividends, right? We will also follow these two stage, right? And for now, we will not use our dividends, right? But we will use our what? Residual income, right? Everything will be still similar, right? But here we will apply our what? Residual income, right? So the price, the value of equities, right, for the growth companies, for the Tesla, for example, and Tesla, right, or Amazon, right, for example, right, what's the value of equities will equal to what? Equal to the current common equities, right? This is common equities plus what? Plus the first stage, right? First stage value of what? Residual income, right? So that's for the residual income. So we will erase dividends on this chart, right? So we will put our residual income into, right? So residual income 1, right? Residual income 2, right? Residual income 3, right? And residual income t minus 1, right? Residual income t, right? To put this number more clear, right, we use black colors, RT, right? T minus 1, RT, T, right? All these numbers we can forecast, right, based on our financial statements, right, in the current years. And also, if you have access, right, to the Bloomberg, right, terminals, you will see all these forecasts are also available in the Bloomberg terminals, right? They will give you the forecast called a pro forma financial statement, right? So you can see here, right? We also will split into the two stage, right? Two stage. The first stage is when a residual income not showing a growth trend constantly. So for this part, right, we will use a residual income discounted to what? To time zero. Use the cost of what? Equities, right? Then for remained cash flows, right? For the future dividends, for this part, right? They will close with a fixed rate, G, right? For this part, we will use perpetuity formulas, right? Perpetuity formulas will be the, RIT, right, over RE minus G, right? But once you solve that, right, it's actually on the time t minus 1 by PV. So you will discount it by what? 1 plus RE raised to time what? T minus 1, right? So it is similar to the DDI model, right? But here we just use what? Residual income, right? For the company, right? They don't pay any dividends, right? We will use this one as a general model, right, to do the equity valuations, right, including the first stage and the second stage, right, and also the common equity values, right, in the current year. So that's our, guidance, right, to do equity valuations by using two-stage valuation. But for these models, right, there's are very important, right? You must to what? You must to decide why is the time t happened, right? Why is the time dividends or the residual value will keep growth with a fixed rate, right? So here you can see here, right, how to choose the t, right, is very important. So we have some guidelines, right, for choosing the t. Recall the flows is being discounted in the valuation equations, right? Will growth with a constant rate g beyond the time t. Right? But what time we will reach the t is very important, right, to choose. Right? There are some benchmark, right, to determine when the dividend will keep growing with constant rate. First one, the sales growth should have the converge to its long-run equilibrium, right? Means our sales growth will be less than the long-run GDP growth rate, right? You can get a GDP growth rate from the macroeconomic, index, right, in our government, right? So if you saw the long-run growth rate, right, and this rate will be used to determine, right, which year, right, your business will converge to the long run equilibrium. Right? If you see the sales growth, right, in the net income, right, in the income statements, right, if you see the sales growth, right, is less than the long run GDP growth rate, right, from our whole country, right? So your individual company's sales growth less than the long run GDP growth rate, right? So means the companies are what? Are matured, right? For example, Microsoft, right? For example, PSEG, right? ExxonMobil, right? All these companies, right? Their size is very big, right? They cannot grow very fast like the IT companies, right? So you can check the sales growth. If you found the sales growth is less than long run GDP growth rate, right? Most likely these companies are reach the long run equilibriums, right? So that's the time forward for T. And also you can check what return on equities by net income over equity values. Right? If you found return on equities converge to the long run competitive equilibriums, right? It's also show that's the time forward for T. Right? So beyond the T, you don't need to do the forecast anymore. Right? Means your companies will show a constant growth rate, right, for the residual income in the future, right? And you can see the T, right? If you have the access to the Bloomberg terminal, right, the growth rate and the T are also, given directly, right, based on their analyst forecast, right? So if you are working for a company, right, if you do the equity valuations, right, these two will be given, right, from a Bloomberg, right? However, if you want to do your personal study, right, personal analysis, right, with small details, right, you can base on these two criteria, right, to to choose a right T, right, for your two-stage model. And for our equity valuations, right, this one gives the total value of the common equities, right? But be careful. Some companies, right, they also issue what? Contingent claims on the common equities, right? For example, what is contingent? Some companies issue what? Warrants, right? Employee stock options and convertible bonds, right? So if they have this contingent claim in the future, right, once the holder, right, to access these warrants or convertible options, there will be more stock available on the markets, right? So we must to subtract the value of the contingent equities claims, right, with outstanding and the value date to determine what? Determine the value for existing equity holders, right? This actual, shares is from the contingent claims. So these actual shares should be what? Should be subtracted, right, from the value you solved, right? Then remainder will be the value for the outstanding, shares, right, for existing shareholders, right? So our value of equity you solved must be minus the value for the contingent claims, right? Then what's left should be the value forward for existing shareholders, right? Then you can derive the price of the share on the market by using this value, right, over how many shares outstanding on today's market, right? So that's our contingent claim, and this part will be take out, and will be take out, okay, including the warrants, right, including the stock options, and also including the convertible bonds. All these, contingent claim will inflate, right, will inflate how many shares outstanding, right? So that's why this part will take out. After you solve the equity values by using the two-stage model, we will use the equity values divided by how many shares outstanding to solve the value per share, right? So we determine the value per share by dividing the value to existing shareholders, right? Using the number of the share outstanding at the valuation date. You can typically find this number of the shares outstanding from the what? From a balance sheet, right? From the most recent form, 10K, right? For example, for our project, right? You can get how many shares outstanding, right, for the company from the form 10K, right? To see how many shares outstanding, right, on that date, and we do the valuations, right? If the firm has engaged in a stock split or stock dividend since the date of the most recent Form 10K, then you should do some adjustment. Then you will adjust the number of the shares outstanding accordingly. For example, if a stock experiences a 2-for-1 stock split, right, then your number will be what? Then your number of the shares outstanding will be what? Will be doubled, right? From the 10K's number should be doubled because there are 2-to-1 stock split. And if you're holding one stock shares, now it will be split into what? 2 shares. That's why the shares are doubled, and for this stock split. Okay, so that's today's topics. We will apply these topics, right, to do one practice, right, in these questions. So this is our sample financial statements, right, for one companies, right, and like what you have, right, in our project, right. For example, you already have 1 year's financial statements data, right, and based on this base year's data, right, you will do some what? Forecast, right. So this is a forecast. Forecast means something in the future, right. So means we now is on what? On the year 2000, right. We try to forecast what? We try to forecast the future years, right, income statements and balance sheet. We call these columns, right. And you can see the step on our course website, right, to how to forecast, right, our financial statements use a pro forma analysis, right. So based on these numbers, we will do our valuations in today's class, right. Use the technicals we studied in this class, right. Before we do the valuations, let's make some assumptions, right. We assume the cost of equities is 10%, right? So that's our assumptions. If you don't know these numbers, you can actually also solve it by yourself. Use what? Use the risk-free rate plus the beta times the RM minus RF. Use the CAPM model, right? Or you can use our DDM models, right? Use the dividend over PT minus 1, right? Plus what? Plus a G, right? Based on the dividends are paid or not, right? You will choose the relevant what formula, right? If a company like Amazon never pay dividends, right? You will use this one, right? To get a cost of the equities, right? If your companies pay dividends and dividends are growing with the growth rate G, you can use this model, right? But most likely, right, for most company in industry, right, we will prefer to use what? Use the CAPM models, right? CAPM model, right? So, but for these questions, right, it is given, so you don't need to solve this one by yourself, right? Our cost of equities is 10%. The pre-tax cost of the debt is also given, right? It's 10%. Our effective tax rate is 40%. Assume, right, there are 1,000 shares outstanding. So after you solve the value of your equities, right, in total, you will divide by what? Divide by 1,000 shares, right, to get a price per share. So that's our assumptions, right? You have the cost of capital, right, pre-tax cost of debt, effective tax rate, and how many shares outstanding, right? For these numbers, for our project, right, for the shares you can get from the 10K, right? For tax rate, you can get what? You can get from the, income statement, right? And for the cost of equities, right, you can get from what? From the balance sheet and also income statements, right, to do some calculations, right? So let's see what's the questions for this practice. So we have a bunch of questions we will solve by using these examples, right? So we have the 9 questions. The first questions, we will find the forecast free cash flow to the common equities, right? For the 2001 and what and beyond, right? Then we will also compute the value of common equities as December 2000 using the free cash flow to the common equity models, right? So that's our first part, right? First 2 questions, right? Based on our common cash flow to a free cash flow to common equity valuation models. So let's solve this one, right? First one, what is the free cash flow to the common equities? We already defined, these equations, right? Our free cash flow to equities is computed as what? It's net income minus the change of what? Common equities, right? So how to solve the change of the common equities will be this year's common equities minus last year's common equities, right? T means this year, right? T minus 1 means what? Last year, right? So the change of the common equity is actually difference of what? Difference of common equities, right? From this year's balance sheet and last year's balance sheet, right? Net income minus the change in common equities will be the free cash flow to equities, right? So first, you can solve the change in the common equities from what? From our balance sheet, right? You can see here. How to solve the common equities by change? You can see here, we have the total common equities, right? And this year is 13,000 for the 2001, right? Last year is what? 11,000, right? The difference 13,000 minus 11,000, right, equal to what? Equal to 2,000, right? That's the number $2,000 here comes from, right? For 2002's change of the common equities, you will use the 12,600, right? Minus what? Minus 13,000, right? So you can see the common equities are decreased, right? For 2002, right? Decreased by what? 400, right? So that's the minus 400 here comes from, right? Same thing for the next year, right? You see the difference will be minus the last year's what? Common equities, right? So that's the role for the change of common equity comes from. Right? So if you have any questions, please put your questions in the chat, right? And same times also leave your name right in the chat as attendance, right? So please write your name with the first and last name right, in the chat as the today's attendance. So our net income, right, minus the change in the common equities, right, equal to the free cash flow, right, to common equities, right? So you can see that's how we solve what? Free cash flow to common what? Common equities. And we can see the free cash flow to the common equities, right, is increasing by what? By 5% in the last year, right? We assume, right, this growth rate will stay forever, right, since 2004, right? Now we can use these, numbers, right, to do the equity valuations, right, equity valuations. So these 3 years free cash flow to equities will be the first stage, right? First stage. And for the continued years, right, will be what? Will be the second stage, right? Second stage. So second stage, we will apply what? We will apply the perpetuities. Perpetuity formulas, right? So we will use our free cash flow to equities, right, over R minus G, right? Then divided by what? 1 plus the, discount rate by raised to the power T, right? So we can see this one in the detail, right? But here, our growth rate is what? 5%, right? That's based on these cash flows, right? We do the valuations. So you can see here is the first stage, right? Is 17, 18, right? Divided by 1 plus what? 10%, right? 10% is the cost of what? Cost of equities, right? So we discount 780 to time what? To time 0, right? That's a 2000 year, right? The year of 2000 is time 0, right? So we discount this one to time 0, right? And also for the 4, 2, 3, 4, we discount to the time 0 by use the compounding discounting factor, right? 1 plus 10% raised to power what? Power 2, right? Then for the remaining cash flows, right? For this part, right? For this part, we will use our, perpetuities formulas, right? We assume these cash flows will grow with 5%, right? Every year, right? So we have the 3396, 3396, right? Over what? Over the growth rate, right? With the R minus G. R is the cost of equity, 10%, right? Minus growth rate, 5%, right? So this is the cash flows, right? For all the remaining what? Remaining cash flow to the common equities, right? This is on time 2. So we will also discount this one to time 0, right? By divide by 1 plus 10% raised to the power 2, right? So we solve what? We solve the value of equity, right? For these companies should be what? Should be $61,000, right? $250. So that's the total value of equities, right? That was how many shares outstanding? 1,000 shares outstanding, right? So we use the total value of equity divided by how many shares outstanding. We solve the price per share, right? Price per share, right? So that means based on this model, the price of the stock must be what? $61, right? If you see the market price more than this one, right? For example, $80, that means our stock are overpriced, right? Overpriced. If you see the price on the market is only $40, right? Means the stock are what? Undervalued, right? Undervalued. So that's our free cash flow to equity models, right? So we will first solve the free cash flow to equities, right? Then based on this free cash flow, we will do the valuations, right, for the common equities. Next questions, right? Question 3. We will solve what? We will solve the residual income models, right? You see the question 3. Question 3 and question 4, right? Suppose we will not have a dividend, right? And we will use our what? We will use our residual income to a common equity model, right? Especially for the growth companies, right? We will prefer to use these models, right? Use the residual income to a common equity model. So first, let's solve the what? Residual income, right? How to solve residual income? Residual income is equal to what? Residual income equal to the net income, right? Minus the spending on what? On the common equities, right? Minus the cost of common what? Common equities, right? So this is the cost of what? This is the cost of equity, right? So this is the last year's, right? T minus one's what? Common equities, right? So this is net income. That income minus the cost of equities, right, will be the residual income, right? Residual income. And here we use our cost of capital, right? Directly is 10%, right, for R. So you can see here, right? Our net incomes are available in what? In an income statement, right? In the income statement, you have the net income, right? Is what? Is here, right? Net income available to common shareholders, right? 3,000, 3,780, right? 3,834, and the others, right? This is the real numbers, right? It's actual number, right? All these numbers are what? Are forecast, right? So don't worry about these numbers, right? You see our project, right? Offer you the software, right? EVA workbook, right? So once you paste the number into the work tables, right? Everything will be generated automatically, right? Automatically. So first, let's capture this net income, right, into our question 3, right? And you know the net income minus last year's cost of what? Common equities, right? Will be what? Will be the residual net income, right? So let's solve this one. So 3,780, right? 3,780 and 3,834, right? This is forecast net income, right? Minus what? Minus the cost of what? Common equities, right? Common equities you can get from the balance sheet, right? Like I mentioned, right? In this row, right? 1,000, right? 13,000, 12,600, right? So let's put here, right? Let's put here. So our residual income, right, will equal to the net income 3,780, right, minus cost of capital by 10%, right, times what? 1,000, right? So that's equal to 3,780, right, minus 1,100, right, equal to the 2,680, right? That's this number comes from. So we solve the residual income, right? And based on this residual income, you estimate, right, our growth rate of the residual income is what? 5%, right? So you will use this growth rate for the what? For future cash flows after what? 2004. So we also have a two-stage model, right? The first stage is for these two, residual income, and we assuming all the other future cash flows will grow with what? with 5%, right? All the residual income in the future years, right? After 2003 will grow with what? 5%, right? So let's say how to do the valuation, right? So first, we know our residual income, right? We will solve the price forward for the whole entities, right? Will equal to what? Equal to the common equities, right? On the time 0, right? Plus what? Plus the residual income, right? On the time 1 over 1 plus R, right? Residual income, right? On the time 2 over 1 plus R square, right? Plus the residual income in time 3, right? And this one will grow with what? With the 5%, right? So we have the R minus what? G, right? That's for the perpetuities, right? And this one will divide by what? 1 plus R square, right? You discount these perpetuities to the time 0 also, right? So that's how to do the valuations, right? So you can plug the numbers into our formulas, right? This is the common equities on time 0. Let's go back to our financial statements. You can see our questions, right? The common equities on time 0 is 11,000, right? That's why you have $11,000, right? In these formulas, right? And also this residual income you solve in what? In the 2001, right? 2680, right? 2680, right? And the next years will be 2534, right? 2534, right? For remained residual income will be 2766, right? And this amount will grow with what? 5%, right? So we have a 10% minus 5%, right? Over 1 plus R squared, right? R is what? R is the cost of capital, 10%, right? So that's why you have these calculations. And you can see in our textbook, right, both for the financial statements and the equity analysis, right? And also we have the textbook from the round home, right? Both textbook, right, including this formula, right? So this formula is very important, right? And we solve the price for the whole, right, entities, right? Will be what? Will be $61,000, right? $250. That's for the question 3, right? Question 3. Question 4, question 4. We use our residual income to the common equity model, right? To do the what? To do the calculations, right? So now we reviewed what? We reviewed the two models, right? One's the free cash flow to the common equities, right? One's the residual income to the common equity valuation model, right? Now we will study the other models, right? For example, free cash flow to all investor valuations model, right? So question 5, right? Question 5. Question 5. Let's see what's the question 5 here. Question 5, we need to forecast free cash flow to all investors, right? This is actually what? Free cash flow to the firm models, right? Means we also including the free cash flow to debt, right? For 2001 and beyond, right? So you will forecast the free cash flow to all investors, right? For the future years, right? Beyond the 2000, right? That's the time we do evaluations, right? And then you will compute the cost of capital. I use the WACC formula, weighted average cost of capital, right? Then based on the value of equities, right? And based on the free cash flows, right? You will discount, right? Use our cost of capital, right? To solve the value of what? Value of the firm, right? The minus value of the, debt, right? You will get what? Value of equities. Right? So let's see how to handle these problems. How to solve the free cash flow? The free cash flow to all investors is computed as what? Net operating income, right? Minus the change of what? net operating assets. Right, that's the formulas we show in today's class at beginnings, right? Then you are adding the after-tax interest back into what? Net income to give what? Net operating income, right? Our regular net income should plus the interest expense after tax, right? To solve what? Net operating income, right? Net operating income, right? Net operating income minus the change of what? Net operating assets, right? Equal to what? Free cash flow to the what? Investors, right? And you know, for free cash flow to the firm should be also including what? Including the long-term debt back, right? Because our investors for the firm, not just equity holder, and also including debt holders, right? So that's why this part you need to adding back long-term debt. So you can see the calculation here, right, in the detail. So we have a net income from income statement, right, plus the interest after tax. We have what? We have the net operating income, right, in this line, right? Then you are adding what? You are adding back the change in what? Change in the net operating assets. How to measure the net change in the operating assets? We have the two parts, right? One's the change in the common equities, one's the change in the long-term debt, right? How to measure this change in the common equities, right? It's the common equities this year, right, minus common equity in the last year, right, from your balance sheet, right? Same thing for long-term debt, right, will be the long-term debt this year minus long-term debt last year, right? So if you take a difference, will be always measure the change of this asset, right? So after you adding these two change together, right, you solve the change in what? In the net operating assets, right? So net operating income minus change in the net operating assets equal to what? Equal to the free cash flow to the firm, right? So you can see the 4440, right, minus 4,000, right, equal to the 440, right? And for the 2002, right, this is the net operating assets, right? And this one minus this one equal to what? Equal to the free cash flows to a firm, right? So we solve the free cash flow for every year, right? And this free cash flow is not just for equities, it's also forward for a bondholder because we already add what interest back, right? So this is free cash flow forward for the whole business, right? For both investors, right? For both debt and equity holders, right? Now we will use this free cash flow in our hands, right, to do the valuations, right, to solve the, the value of the value of the business, right? Before we apply these valuations, right, we must to first determine what's the cost of what? What's the cost of the capital? Right? What's the cost of capital? So before we do the cost of capital, we can also solve the free cash flow to the debt investors, because in the later we will deduct the value to the debt holder, right, from the value to the firm, right, to solve the value to the equity holder, right? So before we go to solve the cost of capital, let's also solve the free cash flow to debt holder, right? What's the free cash flow to the debt holder? Will be the interest, right, paid to the debt holder minus the change in what? Long-term debt, right? So interest minus the change of the long-term debt will be the free cash flow to the debt holder, right? Debt holder. So you can say for 2001, right? You can get our interest before the tax directly from what? From income statement, right? Interest is here, right? In the income statements, right? It's the $1,000, right? That's interest expense, right? Then what is the change in the long-term debt? You can check the long-term debt change, right, over the 2 years, right? So you can see here, our liabilities, right, from the 2000 to 2001, right? Our long-term debt, right? Long-term debt is increasing by what? By $2,000, right? From 2000 to 2001, right? It's increasing from 10,000 to 12,000. So long-term debt increasing by what? By $2,000, right? So our interest expense 1,000, right? Minus the debt change, right? For 2,000, right? So our net cash flow, right? Our operating cash flows, right? Net operating cash flow available to debt holders will be minus what? 1,000, right? So let's say the other years, right? 1,000, right? 11,000, sorry, 11,000 minus 2,000, right? Equal to the minus 900, right? For 2002 will be 1230, right? Minus 600 will be 630, right? You can solve all the free cash flow to debt holder, right? For every year, right? Use interest expense, right? Minus the change in the long-term debt. Now let's solve the cost of what? Capitals, right? You are more familiar with this formula, right? Called a WACC formula, right? It's called a weighted average cost of what? Capital, right? So our weighted average cost of capital is our weighted average of the after-tax cost of the, the equity and also the after-tax cost of the debt, right? So what's the after-tax cost of debt? Will be the 10%, right? Times the 1 minus tax rate will be 6%, right? Cost of equities will be 10%, right? So you can solve what? You can solve the WACC, right? Based our weighted average cost of capital, right? First, let's say what's the value of the debt. The value of the debt, right, is you can use our discounted value of what? Discounted value of the, debt, right? Available to what? Free cash flow available to what? Debt holders, right? So that will be the minus 900, right? Plus 630, right? Right, 900 over 1 plus what? 1 plus the cost of debt, right? Cost of debt is 6%, right? But before the debt valuations, right, the cost will be still will be before the tax, right? Will be 10%, right? So you can see here, right? Minus 900, 1 plus 10%, right? 630 over 1 plus 10% square, right? And then for this one, we assuming the growth rate is 5%, and so we have a 662, right? 662 over R minus G. R is 10%, right? G is growth rate 5%, right? We solve the value of what? Debt, right? So that's here, the number here comes from, right? So that's the value of the debt. And the value of what? The value of equities, right? We also solved, right? In the last questions we did, right? The value of equities is already determined, right? In the question 2 and 3, right? You can see here. Question 2, we already solved the value of equity is 61, right? 250, right? So you will use this number directly, and this is the equity values, right? Value of equities, right? So now you can base on the value of equity, value and value of debt, right? To get a proportion of the weight of debt and equities in the total assets, right? Use the proportion, right? And what's the weight of the debt? Weight of the debt is 10,645 over 106,645 plus 61250. Right? That's the weight of debt. Weight of the debt times the cost of debt, right? 0.06 will be the cost of debt in a WACC formulas, right? And also for the cost of equities, right? We know the weight will be 61250, right? That's the value of the equity, right? Times the cost of equity, 10%, right? So you solve the WACC, right? The cost of capital for the whole firm, that will be 9.4%, right? 9.4%. So that's how this number comes from. Right? Comes from, and we actually apply the two-stage model for both debt and equity, right, to solve the valuations. So you can see our whole firm's values, right, were based on the free cash flow to the whole firm, right, the free cash flow to the all investors, right. Then use our cost of capital WACC as discount rate, right. What is the free cash flow to the all investors? You can see we already solved, right, in these tables, right. The 2001's, right, free cash flow is what? It's 440, right? 2002 is 4372, and the other years will be these numbers, right? That's free cash flow to other investors, right? And our discount rate for this cash flow is what? Our discount rate for the cash flows, right, is already solved, right? 9.4%, right? So we will use 9.4% to discount this free cash flow to the investors, right, to solve the value forward for the whole firm, or value for the whole entities, right? Right? So you can see here, right? We have the 440, right? 440 divided by 1 plus what? 1 plus 9.4%, right? Plus the 4372 divided by 1 plus 9.4% square, right? So we can put this number below, right, to make this one easier to track, right? So 440 divided by 1 plus 9.4%, right? Plus 4372, 1 plus 9.4% square, right? And for these numbers, we were assuming they will grow with fixed constant rate, right, 5%. So we will use this one, right, divided by divided by R minus G, right? R is 9.4%, right, minus 5%, right? And these numbers will divide by 1 plus 9.4% square, right? And you can see the calculations here also with the details, right? And you should know where this number comes from, right? These numbers in the top, in the numerators, right, are free cash flow to all the investors we solved, right? And this is the cost of what? This is the cost of capital, use the WACC formula, right? And this is the growth rate of what? Cash flows, right? So we solve the whole entity's value, right? Whole firm's value is $71,301, right? And these values minus the debt values, right, we solved will be what? Equity values, right? You see, we solved the debt values, right, already. So our firm's values minus debt values will compute, right, should be equity values. So equity values what? Will be $60.66 per share, right? So based on our free cash flow, right, to the what? To the investors model, right? We solve the value of the stock must be $60.66. And the other models we derived, right, from the free cash flow to equity model, and we solve the 61.25. So they are what? They are 559 cents, right? 59 cents difference. So why this one is different, right? So here I give you some, explanation for this disparity, right? For why these two models has 59 cents difference between the valuations, right? Even it is a small disparities, but in the real investment, it actually matters, right? Because if you bought many shares, like 1 million shares, right, even for the 59 cents difference, right, can cause a big difference, right? Can cause a big difference, right? It's equal to the what? Equal to the 590,000. And so for our big investors, right, even for 59 cents difference can cause a huge difference, right? So let's explain why these two models can show a little bit different, right? Can show some disparity. The problem is when we estimate what? Cost of capital, right? We use the cost of capital using what? 9.4% we solved, right? And we use 9.4% we solve in the cost of capital, right? As our discount rate. But this step is actually, cause some trouble. What's the trouble? If we apply this one as the cost of capital, if we use the 9.4% as a fixed, discount rate, we assuming our what? Capital structure is what? Is fixed, right? However, if you check our debt to asset ratio, right, from the 2001 and the later years, right, you can see our, leverage actually is increasing, right? So if you keep using the same cost of capital, right, use the WACC formulas, right, means you can cause some trouble because you assuming the financial leverage are fixed. But in reality, right, in the real financial statements, you forecast, right, you see the change of the leverage is increasing, right? So technically, right, if we apply the WACC, right, directly, right, we assume the WACC remains constant, right? So this approach can cause some problems, right? And there's a debate in the academic, right, for which approach is more suitable, right? Is the cash flow to the equity model is more suitable, or the free cash flow to the investors models is more suitable, right? So this free cash flow is actually something we mentioned in the last lectures, right? It's called a free cash flow to the firm, right? So let's debate to check which model is more suitable for our valuations, right? And if you take this leverage change, right, into considerations, right, you will see in the next week, right, if we use the eval software, right, and you can see the WACC will be what? Will be also dynamic, right, will be 9.3646%, right? In that case, right, our valuation will be more consistent, right? If you put this dynamic change into our considerations, right, our valuations will be more consistent, right? So we will use our eval software, right, in the next class to track the value for our, project directly, right, to see how our model will work, right, in the eval software. And question 9, right? Question 9 is questions you need to answer with some word. Let's see the questions. Question 9, right? Without doing any computations, can you contrast the residual income to all investor model with the free cash flow to the all investors model, right? So there are two differences, right? One is the residual income, one is the free cash flow, right? What's the difference? Let's see the difference here, right? Residual income to all investors model, right? Compute the value of the whole entities, right? Then subtract the value of the debt, right? Just like the free cash flow model. The estimated value of each piece is the same, regardless of which model you use, right? The algebra that demonstrates the equivalence between the free cash flow to equity model and the basic residual income model applies directly to these two models, right? One can start with what? Free cash flow, right? Then rewrite this one in terms of what? Residual operating income, right? Then substituting into the summations and also get result from the value of entities, right? Will equal to the beginning of the value of the net operating assets plus discounted sum of residual operating income, right? If you go back to our residual income model, right, you can see our residual income models, right, have what? Have the two part also, right? For our, residual income models, right, will equal to the common equities for this year, right, plus the discounted value of what? Residual income, right? So you need to add in the current level of what? Common equities, right? But our valuation step actually is very similar. I also have a two-stage model, right? You need to compute residual income first, right? Then use residual income to discount it by what? By the cost of equities, right? How to solve residual income? We already mentioned, right, in the detail, right? So I will not repeat, right? You can check our slides and our lecture, right, with the detail, right? Our residual income will be net income minus the cost of what? Equities, right, in the last year. So that's our today's lectures, right? So I will also record this video and post on what? On YouTube, right, for your reference. For reference. So this class, right, we actually will what? We will use that, right? We will use this one as a reference for what? For the next class, right, to do the real valuations for our project, right? So please first go through these slides, right, and go through today's video, right? Then you can check our course website, right, for for our course link, right? It's called our textbook has a link. You can download many materials, right, including the course slides, right, course videos, right, and also the some examples for the valuations, right. In the examples, our course website, right, give you some valuation examples for different companies, right. For example, we have the valuations for the what? For the I think it's Neiman Marcus, right? Let's see the detail. I see the examples, right? You can see from your terminals, right? I share my screen, right? They do the valuation for what? For the Nordstrom, right? And also, for the company, including what? Including the Amazons, right? And also including what? Including the Tesla, right? You can find these variations, right, in this website, right, with more details, right? You can download this Excel sheet, right, and say what's the financial ratio, and valuation analysis, right, in a eval, right? So your assignment for this week. So please check the financial ratio and the valuation analysis, right? In the eval what? In the eval workbook, right? In the eval workbook, right? So please check these sheets, right? Once the financial ratio, once the valuation analysis in the eval sheets, right? And we will what? We will also apply these two analysis to our companies, right?